Hey guys, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. My name is Brian.
And my name is Maggie.
And we interview Asian entrepreneurs around the world to amplify their voices and empower Asians to pursue their dreams and goals.
We believe that each person has a message and a unique story from their entrepreneurial journey that they can share with all of us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us, whose name is Matthew Ko. Matthew is the co-founder and COO at DeepScribe Inc., an artificially intelligent medical scribe platform. DeepScribe produces accurate, reliable, and quick EHR-ready medical documentation simply by listening to the natural patient encounter. Prior to this, Matt was a consultant within Ernst & Young's data and analytics practice, helping leading companies innovate by enhancing their ability to use and interpret data. He is a proud alumnus of the Walter A. Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley. Fun fact, Matt has a sandwich named after him at the Tivoli's restaurant in Berkeley. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the podcast today, Matt. And we just have to talk about the sandwich real quick. How's this happen?
Wow, you really caught me there, Brian. It was just, I used to go to this restaurant called Tivoli's in Berkeley every single day, like literally every single day. And I would order this sandwich that was not on the menu. I basically made it myself. And I just grew to really connect with the family that owns the restaurant, and we became really good friends. I told a bunch of my friends about the sandwich I ordered. They would see me order and eating it, and they would eventually go in and start ordering it. And it just happened so frequently that they decided to name the sandwich after me. So we had a sandwich naming ceremony and all of that. It was pretty fun. Yeah.
So official. I love that. So big accomplishment. Not everyone can say they have a sandwich named after them.
Also, it also shows how remarkably consistent you are as a person. Yeah. All right. Let's kind of hop into your story, man. Tell us about yourself, and want to hear more about your upbringing and everything.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt. As you guys probably heard, I am the co-founder of DeepScribe. So at DeepScribe, essentially what we do is we automate clinical documentation for doctors. So, when everyone is a patient, they probably have been to the doctor's office before. And a lot of people, sometimes notice that the doctor is actually typing on a computer or writing some notes down. And essentially what we do is we automate that entire process. My background is that I am not a doctor. I don't have, formal training in medicine. My training is from Google and through my experience working through DeepScribe. My background is mostly in technology. So I served as a consultant inside the advanced analytics department of Ernst & Young's consulting group. And really, we started DeepScribe to solve a problem that I was going through personally. Mm-hmm. So when I was working at EY, and also when I was in college, I was serving as the care coordinator for my mom when she had breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And I would actually fly down to be with her during these appointments, helping interpret and helping translate what is being said. My mom's from Taiwan. And, she really needed that support just to make sure that she understood what's going on throughout every step of the way. And we like to joke that DeepScribe started when my mom asked me this one question. And the question was, are you lying to me? I basically was really taken back by this comment because, I couldn't understand why she would even think that. I'm literally flying down to help translate for her. She's being cared for the same way that when I go see the doctor as I get cared for. And, she used to tell me, she's like, Matt, I used to sing karaoke with my doctor. And, my oncologist hasn't looked at me once. And, what she really explained to me was that, she didn't really care about what exactly the doctor was saying. All she needed was someone to really kind of hold her hand, look her in the eyes, and tell her that everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And, when I actually kind of started to realize that, this wasn't happening, I became one of those evil patients that you hear about all the time that, goes to Google to get their MD and would just become one of those terrible patients that would question everything the doctor is doing. And, it got to the point where I said, I really want to change this. Maybe I can, transfer my mom's care to somebody. And that's when I went to my co-founder, Akhilesh, whose dad is an oncologist. Mm-hmm. And when I kind of explained to Akhilesh's dad what I was going through, he kind of just laughed at me. And he said, Matt, you can't blame your mom's oncologist for not providing that, compassionate care that you're looking for. And he started to explain to me about all the things that happen beyond, the curtain after the patient leaves the room, right? We started to learn how burnt out clinicians were. We started to learn how important documentation was. And, as two kind of geeky kids, we said, hey, maybe we can build something cool that can solve this problem. And that's really how it all started. So we started DeepScribe. We incorporated in 2017, but we didn't really go to market till the end of 2019. And since then, it's just been a wild ride. We now service hundreds of clinicians all over the United States. We save them up to 2.7 hours a day on their documentation. And it's really kind of an amazing journey to be able to, see the lives that we change, especially not having that medical background that you think that you need in order to solve a problem. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that I think we often think, if we want to get into the medical field, you need to be a doctor, or you need to be in some sort of role in the medical field, but you don't have any of that experience at all. But you were still, you and Akhilesh both were, so persistent on solving this problem that you both had, and Akhilesh also had a father who was a doctor, and you both kind of had that inspiration to come up with something like DeepScribe. So I think that's super inspirational.
Yeah, I'm so glad your mom's doing a lot better now.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
Definitely our first concern. We heard that story too. It's like, I'm so glad that, she not only inspired you to change more lives, but that she's being better in general. I really like the fact that when you describe DeepScribe, at first you're like, DeepScribe? Yeah, so that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so what were the first couple of months when you started DeepScribe like? And going into a field where you have no really strong background in the medical field, what were some of the challenges that you guys went through?
Yeah, and to add more to that too, you're so driven by a mission-driven company. Mm-hmm. So hats off to you to do something like this, because not a lot of people would take that leap to do something they have no expertise in, just right. Because you care about it. You guys did it, figured it out, and just roll along the way and just made it happen. So hats off.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing is this, battling the anxiety of imposter syndrome, right? I think, especially in the startup community, you always feel like you're not good enough, right? And especially, as an Asian American growing up, you're always kind of told that you can do better, right? I would come home with an A and I would be asked why I didn't get an A+, right? And, to me, I think it's good now that I look back on it, because it made me a very competitive person, and it made me extremely motivated. I'm motivated by that type of, that type of train of thought. But at times it was really challenging because you shy away from certain obstacles or certain things because you think that you're not good enough. So one of the biggest things when we started the company was getting over that fact. Right. And really understand, look, when there's a will, there's a way. I care about something and I want to spend my life doing something where, when I go to sleep, I'm thinking about it. And when I get out of bed, I'm thinking about it. And, something that actually fulfills me. And, it's really liberating to be radical about that and to go out there and chase your dreams and not wait for the validation of others to know that you're good enough. And I think once, that mindset really took place, it really helped us kind of get over a lot of the challenges that we had, trying to create a product for somebody that we really kind of didn't understand the problem firsthand of. Mm-hmm. So it was that. And then I think the second thing was the feedback, right? So when we started this company, one of the things that we had to do was a lot of customer discovery, right? And as technologists, I feel like you almost have this certain way and angle that you approach problems, right? But sometimes that angle is not really what that person is looking for. So to give you guys an example, when we first started the company, we didn't do any customer discovery, and we just started building an Alexa skill. And we thought, wouldn't it be so cool if a doctor can say, hey, Alexa, take a note of this. Hey, Alexa, take a note of that. And, we all just spent a few months kind of developing that. And we ended up giving it to a bunch of Akhlesh's family and friends. And it was just like our baby. We were so excited to give it to them. Mm-hmm. And after like a few hours, every single one of them just said, this sucks. This is the worst thing that I've ever used in my life. Like, you guys, you're doing it all wrong. And we were crushed because, as technologists, we're like, whoa, this is like the coolest technology ever. This is when Alexa was kind of becoming a thing. Mm-hmm. But, I think when we really took back and said, hey, like, why does it suck? And started approaching the problem, assuming that we didn't know anything. And really kind of starting with the customer and saying, look, what would you want out of this, right? And taking a technology perspective from that. That's when we really started to discover, one of the gems about our solution that still stands strong today, which is this idea of, having an ambient solution, right? An idea of having a technology that you don't need to interact with through a wake word or through any other trigger. It's something that can understand a natural conversation and pull out all the relevant details from it and summarize it for you in a way that that's appropriate. So just really kind of liberating yourself from all of those assumptions, really helped us end up where we are today.
That's amazing. So some of my listeners know I used to be a software engineer, and for me to hear these things is like so cool. I think it's really cool. It's good that, you launch your product, you launch your MVP, you got feedback immediately. Some people never even get to that point. And if they get feedback, they're so harsh on themselves. Like you mentioned earlier, like imposter syndrome, that they just quit. You're like, wait, I'm building a crappy product. I should just quit because no one likes it. But the fact that you incorporated these feedbacks, although they were negative to begin with, created a better product for people, and that's a sign of a mature entrepreneur. That's a sign that you do want it to happen. That's a sign that you're willing to listen to your customer. Because what I realized about other creators and engineers and founders is that sometimes our biggest downfall is that we don't like to listen to customers. Well, that's not true at all. Customer is key, guys. Like, listen to customers, but keep in mind that not all customers know what they're talking about. So incorporate the good ideas and don't incorporate every single idea. It's like, oh, if it fits into your vision, your North Star and business plan, then incorporate it. So that's one thing I want to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially in healthcare as well, I think that everyone kind of has their own preferences on how they want to receive healthcare, or, but especially in healthcare, customers' preferences and their feedback and their opinions are very, very important. And it's so important for you to take in that feedback.
So I do want to ask you a technical question. How do you determine the algorithm to select the keywords that the doctor is saying that's important?
I don't know if I can go too deep into that.
Not too deep, but like this is a general idea.
Yeah, I think, it took a lot of work, right? Because, essentially what we had to do was we had to harvest and develop our own data set, right? Typically in the academic community, if you had a problem, you go find some data set out there and you train your model on it. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're dealing in a space that is so on the cutting edge that, there is no data. The data that we use is a natural patient conversation. And, those aren't really being recorded anywhere. Right. And not only that, we need to be able to label these conversations in a very highly accurate way that is, unshackled from some of the biases of the people that are giving you that data. Right. So one unique thing about these notes is that there's no object. There is an extent. There's a degree of objectivity to what is relevant to a patient's chart, but at the same time, there's this huge long tail of things that some doctors think are important, others doctors think that aren't important, and if you're unable to capture that long tail, it makes it very difficult to say that you have like a comprehensive solution. So I think for us, what we had to do was we had to not only label the data by looking at the final notes that were produced by those doctors, but we had to take our own perspective on it. We had to train our own data labelers to go in and say, hey, this might be important to another doctor, even though it's not important to this doctor. And it just took years of that, to be honest. It took years of really kind of understanding what is important, what could be important, what is definitely not important. And, through years and years of that, we've been able to train an algorithm that is able to kind of pull things out, but also we're able to kind of tweak that by accommodating for preferences, right? So one really cool thing about our product is that there's a whole conversion layer that a doctor can customize. And what I mean by that is I like to joke that you can take a note, or you can take a note written for the same patient from two doctors, and they're going to look they're going to look totally different. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because these preferences, right? Some doctors like very verbose sentences. They like going to detail, right? Other doctors are short and concise. They use bullet points. And if your solution to that is to give them a robotic note that doesn't look anything like theirs, they're going to spend a lot of time, revising your note to look like theirs. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to develop a conversion layer that is able to accommodate for some of these. So say if you want to decrease the verbosity of your sentences, we can do that. If you want to change the pronouns of how you refer to the patient, we can do that. If you want to change the body systems that you do for different physical exam templates, we can do that. And it's one of those things where it's like, you can't Google it, right? You can't just go online and find someone that has written directions on how to build this. It's like, you need to do that by just being, completely transparent with your customers and understanding what their needs are.
That's so cool. it's so unique. And my goodness, I'm thinking, I'm like visualizing in my head right now. I'm like, dude, that's so hard to do. And the fact that you're able to capture all the data and create new data sets for this company, that's amazing, man.
Absolutely. So we understand you have a third co-founder as well. So it's the three of you. And we understand that you're all technical. The three of you are all technical. And oftentimes, you have companies that start off with a CEO or a founder who, sometimes isn't technical, and they bring on a CTO that is, from the technical side. So what are some of the advantages that you guys had when all three of you are technical and you brought in like a blend of like tech and domain understanding and healthcare all together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's a double-edged sword, right? So I first want to put out that of my three co-founders, I am by far the least technical out of all of them, right? Both Akhilesh and Kaire are two of the most talented engineers that I've ever met, right? We used to joke that when we have a problem and, for example, when COVID hit, right? When COVID hit, we said, hey, we should build a telemedicine solution. Mm-hmm. And, we kind of sat back and I sat down with my team. We're like, oh, it'll probably take, 2-3 months to build something like this. And then we asked Kaire, our CTO, and he was like, I'll have it to you by Thursday. So, it's one of those things where it's just like, I think there's an advantage to that in that you have kind of that diversity of thought in that team dynamic. Because for me, it's like I'm an optimist, right? Because I come from more of the business background and I manage everything that's not code in the company. But I think that optimism is met with practicality when you start talking to these engineers. Because, I describe an idea and I'm like, this is a well thought out idea. And, we have to, distill it into, a BRD, a business requirements document, and then a functional requirements document. And you start to kind of unpack wow, if I am expressing a solution this way and, someone else that needs to execute on the solution is thinking about all these other edge cases, then it becomes it becomes a lot harder to develop something like that without an orchestra that is kind of, harmonizing with the way that these two trains of thought are working. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really helped us in that, we have a really solid rhythm in the business, but I think sometimes it hurts us because, as technologists and as business people, we want a lot of different things.
Yes.
Right. So when we asked, the engineering team, what is the biggest priority for the business? A lot of them would say, hey, like infrastructure, let's make this infrastructure more and more scalable. Right. And the sales team would be like, well, it already works. Let's just build new features. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it is like, that diversity of thought is good, but you need to be careful and mindful about how to kind of orchestrate that and bring that back together for it to actually be productive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting hearing both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting hearing that dynamic that you guys have between technical and business. And it's really, really, really true. Like business people, our mentalities want to hire, to generate as much revenue as we can, right? And sometimes it doesn't connect well with the technical side. It's like, why are you promising that? We don't have that ready yet. That's like the gender balance.
Exactly it. Yeah.
That's the balance that we all face as like technical founders and co-founders. But I want to understand more about your own personal founder journey and what you learned about yourself throughout the last 4 years. When you started a company and had a product launch in 2017, 2019, like what was your growth mindset like? And at a certain point where you're just like, is this something I want to do for the rest of my life? Or how did you overcome like the initial fears and struggles that you began with?
Yeah. I think it was a really long journey for me. I think, I had to deal with some personal anxiety, right? To be honest with you, like when we started the company in 2017, I didn't tell my parents that I quit my job until 2019.
Wow. 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
And that wasn't until we raised, millions of dollars from institutional investors. Mm-hmm. And, the reason for this was, because as I said, going back, that imposter syndrome, right? Like when I graduated college, started working at a, Big Four accounting firm, it was easy for my parents to be proud. They were like, hey, like my son works at EY, and it was just easier to talk about. And I knew this, right? And, at the time it's like, hey, mom, dad, I want to, throw this all away to go pursue this dream that I have, right? Even though I think it was pretty honorable, the reason why I wanted to do it, I was still afraid to kind of be open about it. So, the first thing for me was, again, going back to like just being radical and just saying, hey, like I don't need any other person's validation that what I'm doing is right. Like when I wake up from bed every single day, I know what I want to do that day, right? I don't need someone to say it's okay for you to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think if you have a good head on your shoulders and you are kind of honest with yourself and you're not afraid to do that. And, I think a lot of cool things can happen, right? When we started the company, like we weren't getting paid, right? And my parents didn't know, so they weren't supporting me, right? So it was like, I was, living off the money that I had saved up, and there was a lot of pressure from that. And, going back to, I'm a very competitive person. I'm very motivated by this. It almost kind of helped me because I said, I want to prove them wrong. I want to do, like, when I tell them, I want it to be such that, there's nothing that they can be but proud of me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that was kind of the biggest thing that I learned about myself was like, look, I'm okay with being radical. I'm okay with, just not seeking validation from others. And then I would say the second thing is I always repeat this because one of our board members taught me this, and I say this almost every day. I say, what got you here will not get you there. And it is honestly the mantra of my journey as a startup entrepreneur, because, when you start a company, the things that you do are changing every single day. Right. And unless you have that ability to evolve as a person and be honest with yourself and say, hey, like, this is what you need to do to get there. Mm-hmm. You're never going to succeed. Right. So like when we started the company, I was doing everything. I was getting on the back of my Vespa, driving to every single doctor's clinic in San Francisco, knocking on people's doors, trying to hand them flyers. Right. And I was at the same time trying to incorporate the business, figure out taxes, figure out go-to-market strategy, everything else. Once we raised our seed round, it became, how do I build a team, right? What is the staffing model to build a successful organization? How do I learn how to recruit people? How do I learn how to inspire people? Mm-hmm. And now that we have all these employees, it's like, okay, how do I create a culture where people are motivated and fulfilled by the work that they do? Right. And every single stage, you have to be honest with yourself and say, like, look, what do I need to change and what do I need to do now to get me to the next level? Right. So it's I think that's kind of one of the most important lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur.
I love that. I love that journey a lot.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's very inspiring to see you grow as a person, and especially because the mission and the inspiration of DeepScribe is so near and dear to your heart that you were trying to solve a problem, being a care coordinator for your mother and, just trying to prove them wrong. And that goes so deep down in like Asian culture as well, and they get so proud of us if we have a stable job and a stable income. But, like when Brian and I quit our jobs, it was also very hard for us to tell our parents because we're so afraid of the things that they'll say and the things that they'll think, and for them to know that we won't have a stable job, it's like we want to prove them wrong. We want to tell them like we're going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think it's more than that too, right? Like for you guys, it's as Asian Americans, to some degree, I think success is defined for us.
Right.
Like you grow up thinking, hey, I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be an accountant. Right. And, what I found is like, especially I'm sure you guys have found this, with your parents is like, what makes it even more proud is when you define success for yourself and you can prove to them that like they raised somebody smart enough and good enough for that definition of success to be something that they could be proud of. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think like the doctor lawyer analogy is a good reference point. Right. But if if your parents have raised somebody where they want, where that person wants to excel beyond that and define their own and forge their own path, I think that's where it becomes, really special to see that happening.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Definitely agree with that part too. And just to add on more, it's like your parents might not support you at the beginning, but after you prove that whatever you choose is a viable career path, they are your biggest supporter ever.
Yeah.
To get to that point, it's a different struggle.
Okay. I love how you mentioned that, as you were growing into, being CEO of this company, you had to learn new things. You had to learn how to recruit people. You had to learn how to, manage people and lead the organization. And I did read in an article that building culture within DeepScribe was very important for you guys. And you guys would talk about how you could Slack someone at like 1 a.m. and their green light would be on because everyone just had the same vision for DeepScribe, that they were so passionate about the mission, right? And at any hour of the day or night, they would be willing to respond back because they're just so passionate about the mission. And would kind of love to hear, like, how did you guys build that culture within DeepScribe? I'm sure it had to take a lot of work to build that culture. It does take a lot of work to just, run an organization and build culture within the organization. So how did you guys do it?
I also feel like Matt leads by example. So I want to hear more about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a company's culture is a direct reflection of their founders. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like the type of people, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs that, are very, very unorganized, but they have an organized chaos. Right. And I have other entrepreneurs that, just like they're workhorses. Right. I'm a very type A type person. My girlfriend would tell you that I never stop working. She told me yesterday that in my sleep, I told her to map out the buyer journey.
That's hilarious.
So, it's something that I always think about. And, I think that the culture of the company takes on the same kind of behavior and the mindset of the founders. That said, I think for us, it became something that we didn't really think about very early on, right? As I said, like when we're starting the company, we're doing everything, right? And the last thing we wanted to think about was, what color swag we're going to get, our employees, or how should we celebrate the small win? And I think as the team kind of grew, we started to learn that like not everybody is as type A as us, or not everybody can work every single day and like, be up at 4 a.m. when something happens. So I think for us, it was just like, okay, how do we develop a culture where, it's all based off of what fulfills that person, right? So like when I interview people, the first thing I usually say is, look, I've read your resume. It's really impressive, but I'm not really interested in talking about anything in that resume. What I want to do is I want to get to know who you are as a person and what motivates you, right? Because as long as what motivates that person aligns with the mantra of the business and they're able to subscribe to that mantra, they're able to really kind of devote themselves from a personal level to what they want to work on. Because, for me, like I like to say that the lines between work and life are blurred, right? Like this is my life's work, right? And, I want everybody as part of the business to feel that way as well. And as such, we fairly compensate them. Everybody in our company has a meaningful equity stake in our business because we strongly believe that is how you align those incentives to say, hey, like, I'm not here just because I want to make a salary. I'm here because I want to change the world. Right. And you need a team of people like that to really make that vision that you have a reality. Right?
No, that's absolutely true. And I love that, and I love how generous you are with taking care of the team and being there for them. So hats off to that. And we understand how hard it is to build a team. It's extremely difficult, but once you get everyone onto the same vision, like the work that we do is so gratifying. Just to change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned that, everyone really needs to align their internal goals with the vision and the mission of the company, right? Because, if same thing as you said, if you pay that person a salary, it takes so much more than just a salary to have that person be on board and be passionate about the company. You really need them to like want to change the world and go along with this vision to change the world, right? Because as soon as I get that salary, it's like, okay, I'm going to go out for the rest of the week and not, focus on work, but really be passionate about changing that world within that mission is so important. Yeah.
And what you said about, just being your life work is so relatable to us as well. Like we see Asian Hustle Network being our life's work. And because we see it that way, we're so patient with the way we make decisions and do things, because we just want to make the best organization that we can in our lifetime, to just really like create better representation. And we feel the same passion in your voice and your story and the way you treat your employees. This hats off to you, man.
Yeah. It really reminds me of Asian Hustle Network as well, because we've had volunteers, and our main focus is to always find people who do want to change the world and be an influence to the Asian community, and not only volunteer just to volunteer. And so it does take a lot of work. Yeah.
So what kind of tips and advice do you have for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur? Something that you didn't realize before that now you realize and that if you can tell your younger self just one advice, what would that advice be?
It's hard to just pick one.
Right, you get two.
It's hard to pick two. I think the first thing is, and I said that before, is just do it, right? Like stop waiting for the world to bring you what you want and go out and get it, right? Like, and just don't be afraid to ask for what you want, right? Like if you have an idea of the world and you know what you want out of it, don't wait for the world to give it to you. Go grab it, right? And if you are brave enough to do that, then you should also understand that, like, only through that will you be able to learn and test your true boundaries, right? And I think that's kind of what life's about, right? Life is about understanding who you are. It's this monk-like journey to be the best version of yourself. And if you're too afraid to confront some of the parts of yourself that aren't so great, or you're too afraid to confront some of the parts of yourself that are awesome, right? Then you're just going to be who you are yesterday. So I think the first thing is just go out and do it, right? The second thing is I would say like just celebrate the small wins, right? I think especially as an entrepreneur, your job is to solve an unsolvable problem. And the issue with solving an unsolvable problem is that it's a paradox, right? There is a problem after a problem after a problem after a problem. And you're never really going to get to the point where you've solved everything, right? This unsolvable problem is unsolvable. But along the way, you're gonna have these small wins, right? Like, when you reach for example, for you guys, when you do your 100th podcast, right? Or for us, when we got our 100th customer, or for us, when we hit $1 million, right? Like that was the small win that we just we want to make sure we celebrate, because if you're always focusing on the problems, you're going to get lost and you're going to be like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm trying so hard, I'm not changing the world. When you look back and you look at all the good that you've done. Right. So just make sure that, you celebrate the small wins, because that's the only way that you're going to stay sane.
Love that.
Love that. Yeah, that's a very sound advice. And so we have one last question for you, Matt, and we're very curious to know what your goals are for the next year. They could be related to your business, or they could be personal goals as well.
So I think for goals for the next year, we're going out to raise our Series A. I think that is one of the things that we have been working so hard for the past few years. And I think when we look at kind of the metrics that we have, we're really confident that we can go and do it, but you never know until you go through the process, right? And one of the goals that we want to do is we want to be able to kind of go raise that Series A so that we can have more resources to really accomplish that goal, right? We like to get one step further to bringing the joy of care back to medicine. I think another goal is I really want to grow our team. Right. I love our team. And we were talking as founders the other day, our favorite part about building this business is not that, it's not that we see all these amazing metrics, or, we get that clout of, being an entrepreneur. It's that we get to start a party of people that love each other and love what we're doing. And, we hope, we grew from 3 to 25 employees in 1 year, and we're planning to go double that probably in the next year. So
that is crazy.
Amazing.
That's kind of another big goal. Personally, I want to just get in touch with people. I think as an entrepreneur, you get so obsessed with what you're doing that you kind of lose touch with some people that you really care about. And, you see them clapping from the sidelines, but again, right. I admittedly, could be doing a better job, getting in touch with people that I used to talk to every day. So, that's a personal goal for me.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to see all of those goals, come to light, and, we definitely know that you can do it.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners find out more about you and DeepScribe online?
So you can visit us at our website. It's deepscribe.ai. That's the best place to reach us. You can find us on LinkedIn or anything else like that. If you want to email me, my email is matt@deepscribe.ai.
So
please. But, I'm always happy to talk to people. And honestly, one of the things that I take pride in is helping other people. So I can't even count the number of people that have helped me on this journey. And we are, as a company, standing on the shoulders of giants. We would be nowhere had we not asked for help from people. So it's, I always like to pay it forward. If someone's listening here and, wants to talk, always feel free to reach out to me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that offer, Matt. It was amazing hearing your story today, and we really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Maggie.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the show.
We would like to get to the top 10 on iTunes, so be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We release an episode every single Wednesday, so stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much.